Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am back with another true crime video, but today we are doing something slightly different. A lot of you guys have reached out to me on the comments, in my emails, requesting that I do more updates on previous videos that I have touched on. So that is a new segment that I want to introduce to the channel, where I walk you guys through what happened in court, to the verdict, all the way to the aftermath of some of the videos that I have previously done. So today we are going to be doing the update of the story of Thembekile, Letlape and Sibusiso Zitha. Just so you are able to understand the case better, I do recommend that you check out my previous video on this case first before you start with this video, because this is just going to be an update. So I won't be doing a deep dive here. I will obviously be refreshing your minds with a 1 or 2 minute summary of the case before I dive into the court matters, but I highly recommend that you check out my previous video. I will make sure that I link it down in the description below. With that said, and without wasting any more time, let's dive into today's video. Thembekile Letlape was born and raised in Johannesburg to mother Mpho Letlape and father Dr. Letlape. She grew up in a well-to-do family with a father who moved from being a medical doctor to currently serving as a member of parliament representing Action SA. Thembekile was just as hardworking in her own right, moving from working in finance and following her passion and starting her own pastry business, which gave her the nickname Pastry Princess. In 2023, she started dating Sibusiso Zitha. Now, Sibusiso Zitha had just come out of a 10-year-long relationship and had also just recently relocated from Cape Town to Johannesburg after the failed relationship, as well as his business being in financial issues. On top of those two things, he also had a substance issue that he was able to mask really well. Although he was heavily into substances, he was masking it well and therefore was able to charm Thembi and her family. Once the relationship started, things moved really quickly, to the extent of which he persuaded Thembi to move out of her parents' home and into his house in Fourways with him. As much as things were moving quickly, but things weren't good, the relationship was quite tumultuous and the family was actually getting quite worried about Thembi. But they were stuck between a rock and a hard place because Thembi was quite old enough to make her own decisions. And Dr. Letlape actually touched on this when he was making a victim impact statement during sentencing, and I just want to play that video here so that you just have an idea of how the family felt during that time.
We knew she loved him. And I sit and I say she died for love. But what pains us most is we saw the signs of trouble in the relationship. And what we ask ourselves is, could we have done more? And we were pleading with her to come back home so that she can recover, she can be supported, and they can work on their relationship. And what I ask myself is, could I have done more? But having raised her, she was 38, she was an adult. We couldn't make decisions for her, but we could sit, advise her, and hope she would make the decision of coming back home and be supported. And I ask myself, what happened that night? Because we had opened our house to him. We thought he could be able to speak to us on any matter. And we would support and be able to look at resolution of the issues. But what happened on that night is something that will stay with me and will stay with us for the rest of our life.
On the night of the incident, on the 30th of May 2024, Thembi and Sibusiso Zitha were at their Fourways house with Sibusiso's 10-year-old child from his previous relationship. Thembi was cooking, the child was watching a movie, and the couple was also having some drinks. An argument is said to have ensued. Sibusiso claims that during this argument, Thembi had said something about his late parents. The statement that Thembi had allegedly said had pushed him over the edge, and that is when he snapped. He then went on to take Thembi's life during this argument. I do go into more detail regarding this interaction on my previous video, Sibusiso then shortly gets arrested. He seeks bail. During his bail application, it does state that the reason he's seeking bail is because he wants to go sort out his business matters, but he's the only one who understands what's going on with his business, and therefore he needs to wind things down himself. He is then denied bail, however, and would remain in custody until July of 2025 when the proceedings started. During the plea proceedings, Sibusiso opted to plead guilty to all the charges that were laid against him. The consequences of pleading guilty is that there's going to be no trial. This can be good and this can be bad, and I'll tell you why it can be good. It's good because it spares the family from trauma of coming to court every day and reliving the whole experience. It's tedious, it can be strenuous to the family. Jumping from a plea hearing to sentencing can be good, but it can also be very bad. The bad thing about a guilty plea by a perpetrator is that there is no trial. If there's no trial, that means there's no introduction of evidence. If there's no introduction of evidence, technically, the judge does not know who he or she is dealing with. And I'll make an example. We'll try use this case as an example. Sibusiso Zitha pleads guilty to taking Thembi's life. The problem is that there's no introduction of other evidence. If he had not pleaded guilty and there was an actual trial, the family and the state would be able to introduce evidence that actually Sibusiso Zitha had actually been laying hands on Thembi numerous times before, that he was very violent with his previous partner as well, that he had just broken up with, to the extent of which he had another case pending regarding that. So those are all the things that could be introduced as evidence to actually paint a picture. What is the type of person that we're dealing with? What has this person done previously? But once someone pleads guilty and there's no trial, that door is closed. There's no introduction of evidence. So all the judge sees is a person that is saying, I'm sorry, I'm remorseful, I made a mistake, I'm pleading guilty. And that is the only impression the judge has of this person. Lawyers know this when they advise their clients that, you know what, plead guilty. Let's not go through a trial. Come across as remorseful. This is going to help you get a lesser sentence. That's just law in a gist. Law is a game of loopholes. It's a game of understanding that if you play this card, this is what's going to come out. If you play this and this card, this is what's going to come out. And that is exactly what they played here. Sibusiso Zitha's lawyers counted on the guilty plea as well as him having to come across as remorseful. So during mitigation, Sibusiso spoke on his own behalf. I will be playing just a few minutes of his mitigating statement.
Words can't, there aren't words to describe what I've done and the pain that I've caused you. I'm deeply, deeply sorry for what has happened and for the pain that I've put you through. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry I betrayed you. I should have been more open with you. I should have been more forthcoming with you about my own personal problems that were impacting my relationship with Thembi. But I had my own pride issues that got in the way and led to this moment, and well, not to this moment, but to her passing. And I ask you to please, if you can, find it in your hearts to one day forgive me for my actions. I did not, wasn't my intention. I think that Letlape, you know, I've spent many days with you speaking about the challenges that I face. And I think you knew my intentions with your daughter. And I might not have been the right person for her at the time. I see that now, I admit it. But a different me was. I still feel that and I still believe that, and I'm sorry for what I did. And if you could please find it in your hearts to forgive me and my family. And
I will do right by her memory. I will do right by your family. I'm not sure how yet, but God will make a way. I'm willing to do the time whenever this court imposes with no objection. I was wrong. I erred. And I must pay for it. I admit to that. And whatever judgment the court gives me, could it at least please brings, I hope it brings some kind of
After he spoke, he also brought his pastor who spoke on his behalf, and he requested not to be recorded, which is, I'm not surprised. The pastor basically said that, he did not know Sibusiso to be a person like this. He did know that he had a slight temper and was stubborn, but he was not one to fight unless someone had basically done something or said something about his family, basically playing on the fact that Thembi had allegedly said something about Sibusiso Zitha's late parents, which had led to him losing his mind and taking her life. Sibusiso Zitha and the pastor spoke on his behalf to mitigate the sentence. And then in aggravating statements, Thembi's father then spoke and delivered a victim impact statement. During this, he just shared how this had affected their whole family and how they were just pleading for justice for Thembi.
We're hoping for a maximum sentence, the maximum possible sentence, because our loss is maximum. Our loss is complete. Our loss is irreversible. And we're hoping, as a mark of the value of our daughter to the family, that there would be a maximum sentence meted out. She's our first biological child. So the links to her are eternal and special. And she was a giving person. She was a loving person. And I hope I'll be able to continue the legacy of the values she kept.
The following day, the judge delivered the sentence.
In regard to all of the factors, I'm satisfied that the sentence of 15 years imprisonment is appropriate. The accused is sentenced to 15 years imprisonment.
Sibusiso Zitha was given 15 years. When the judge was delivering the sentence, he considered a couple of things. Considered the fact that he had come across as remorseful, he had given a guilty plea, he had accepted responsibility, he had confessed to the police, and the fact that he has 2 minor children that he has to come out to, right? Imagine. In South Africa, and this is something we have to continuously stress, a 15-year prison sentence does not necessarily mean 15 years. With good behavior, a person could easily be out in 7 years. And in this particular case, considering the fact that he has already spent about a year pending the trial, this is going to be marked as time served, meaning that in the next 6 years, Sibusiso Zitha will be out and about with the rest of us. To say the Letlape family was devastated by this conclusion is an understatement. This is their immediate response after the sentencing.
There is no justice for women. What is that?
Our child is not coming out. And the message has been sent that she was worthless. And that's what we as a family have to contend with. That's the secondary trauma we have. And in addition to losing her, we now have to deal with being failed by the justice system. And I guess you could look back and say, they played their cards well. They pleaded, so facts would not come out. And that's how they got here. So the legal system in the country, it's not a form of justice. It's lawful. It's a game. And we are the pawns in that game.
Dr. Letlape also shared more about how the family felt after sentencing in a TV interview later that day, and this is what he had said.
As a family, we are gutted by this. This is the last thing we expected. It's taken us back to the 31st of May last year. We back to square one. We were traumatized by the incident. We now traumatized by the justice system, and it is painful. It is mind-boggling. We have a sense that our daughter's life was not considered worthy. We have a sense that she's being minimized. I mean, this was a very horrific and brutal.
It's frightening when you go into the details, and I will not go into those at this point in time. But we feel let down, we feel betrayed, and you know, my preoccupation on this matter is about, there are three issues. Justice. As you see, I have a t-shirt that says justice for Thembi, and that hasn't happened. We want support for victims. I mean, in all this period, we've been on our own, to our own ends. There's never been any support from the state, psychological support. We can afford to go our own way, but there should be assistance for people that are in this position. And, you know, we are a nation that is killing and destroying its women and girl children, and that needs to stop. And this type of sentencing encourages men to continue on the carnage. And I hope that the prosecuting authorities will appeal the sentence. If that doesn't happen, we'll take legal advice and see what we can do as a family. But for me personally, this has basically defined the rest of my life. None of us have been the same, and none of us will ever be the same.
And honestly, guys, it's cases like this that highlights and show us what happens in the South African justice system and how flawed it is and how much work still needs to be put into amending some of these precedents that have been set by previous cases. And this is atrocious. This is an injustice. This is South Africa. And that is where I'm going to be ending today's video today. Let me know if you would like me to do more of these. And thank you guys so much for watching. I won't stop doing the normal videos. I expect one again in the next 2 days or so. And with that said, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.